and I, my brothers Jonathan and Timothy. This is something that my brother John actually put together and spent, I think he stayed up till 4 a.m. writing this, and I agreed to read it and put my touch on it, but I just wanted to make the point that this really comes from Jonathan's heart. So, and this is entitled Invincible. We have never called our grandfather Grandpa, nor have we ever referred to him as any of the terms traditionally reserved for grandparents. We only knew our grandfather as Buppy. Family legend has it that despite best efforts to coax him, our cousin Bobby was incapable of saying the word grandpa when he was a toddler. He did, however, manage to gurgle out the syllables, Buppy, and the nickname stuck, and the rest is now McLeod family history. To my brothers and I, Buppy was larger than life and nothing short of a legend. Up there with the big hitters like Paul Bunyan and Johnny Appleseed, but of course far cooler. This would hardly come as a surprise to anyone who knew him. His signature silver locks curled just over the edge of his horn-rimmed glasses. And at over just 6 feet tall, he towered over both our parents and pretty much anyone else we knew. In addition to his stature, Bub had a demeanor that commanded respect from those around him. And while we're talking about stature, I want to mention my newborn son, Elliot. Well, you know, he won't get the opportunity to get to know Buppy, but he actually did inherit the long arms and the big hands. And if you don't believe me, you can check it out later on. But yeah, he commanded the respect of those around him. Having served in the army and worked in a machine shop his entire life, he was a vigorous and powerful man who was no stranger to hard work. It was his generation of men who grew up during the Great Depression, went off to fight in World War II, and returned home to help build our nation. Men like Buppy knew the meaning of sacrifice, both in terms of material possessions and of real blood, sweat, and tears. He was a man humble in spirit who never bragged about what he'd done or what he'd been through. Even though we wouldn't come to understand all that until later, Buppy still really captivated us as kids. We were always excited to see what Buck was building in his workshop. In fact, it was one of the highlights of our visits to Nanny and Buppy's house. Our grandfather had commandeered a good portion of the basement and turned it into an impressive workshop, complete with every type of tool you could possibly imagine, and a few dozen more. Our visits always involved a sit-down test at Buppy's workbench where he would go through all the major categories of tools with us, followed by a comprehensive oral examination. Organization, utility, and efficiency were the cardinal themes in Bupp's workshop. A place where there was, and I think this quote was already said, but a place for every tool and every tool in its place. I think everyone who knows Buppy must have received something from him at some point that he had made himself. A rocking chair, a birdhouse, chessboards, doll houses, picture frames, or whatever he had been busy churning out in his workshop that week. Stories of him assembling or fixing all the neighborhood's kids' bicycles spread across town like an ice cream truck jingle. Truth be told, we honestly believed that Buppy could fix absolutely anything. In between visits, my brothers and I stockpiled our broken toys to be fixed when he returned. Even years later, when our electronic Space Invaders game broke, we refused to believe my mother when she told us, Buppy won't be able to fix something like that. Impossible, we thought. But Buppy was more than just a handyman. He was a green thumb. His green thumb was responsible for one of the most gorgeous victory gardens we'd ever seen. He also wrote poetry, which was just as beautiful for its fine calligraphy as it was for its words. As always, there was an opportunity for teaching in everything that Buppy showed us. Whether explaining how he grew parsnips in his garden, or pointing out a live hummingbird for us for the first time, Buppy always insisted on incorporating a lesson in our time together. We always felt so proud and lucky to have Buppy as our grandfather. Being Buppy's grandkid meant having Christmas ornaments that were made by hand. It meant always having the National Geographic magazine mailed to our home and its maps pinned up on the walls of our room to teach us about the world. It meant McDonald's ice cream cones learning about the Clan MacLeod, listening to recordings of bagpipes in his den, building birdhouses and being tickled whenever you said the word sleeper. And it meant having secret handshakes that only we knew. It's been many years since the days of riding around in the go-kart, or gig, as he called it, that Buppy built for us as a gift. But even as Bupp grew older in recent years, he still exuded the strength that we knew him for as kids, well into his 90s. One winter's evening, as we got Buppy ready to leave our parents' house, he pulled himself up on his walker and began making his way to the door. Johnny grabbed a blanket and draped it over his back and said, "Hey, Bupp, it's cold out there, you know." Instead of agreeing, Bupp grabbed the blanket corners like we did as kids to make a superhero's cape. Then he looked at Johnny and said with a wink and a smile, "I'm invincible." And invincible is how we will always remember Buppy.